To implement the composite pattern, first we should introduce an interface called component. We could call it anything. It doesn't have to be component. Here we should declare the operations that are common between leaves and containers or composite objects. In our demo, that's going to be our render method. So void render. Now we should have each of these types implement the component interface. So we go to our shape class and type implements component. So here we have the implementation of the render method. Now in Java, it is better to add the override annotation to this method. This is not required, but if we add this annotation, the compiler will make sure that we're implementing the render method declared in the component interface. Now, let's go to the group class and have this class implement the component interface. Next, we should change the type of this list. Instead of maintaining a list of objects, we want to store a list of components. A component can be a shape or a group. So let's change this to component. Also, I would prefer to rename this field to components to be more explicit. In our add method, instead of getting an object instance, we should receive a component instance, and we simply add it to our list. Now, with this, we're going to simplify our render method. So when we iterate over the list of components, look, if we type object, that is our local variable, dot, we see the members of the component interface. So there is no need to explicitly check the type of each object and cast it. So let's delete this ugly code. We don't need a code block either. So we call object.render. Also, it's better to rename this variable to component to be consistent with the other names. So here's our render method. Now, let's say tomorrow we decide to introduce the concept of moving a component. So we go to our component interface and add a new method, move. Obviously, in a real application, we should have parameters like X and Y coordinates, but let's not worry about these details. We just introduced the concept of moving, which is common between shapes and groups. So in our shape class, we should implement this new method. Here we can say move shape. And similarly, in our group class, we implement this new method. Now here, once again, we're going to iterate over our components and forward the move request to each individual component. So for component in components, component.move. So at this level, inside the group class, we don't care if you're dealing with a shape or a group. We're treating them the same way using the component interface. Now, in our main class, after rendering a group, we can move it. So group.move. Let's run the program. So we have 4 messages for rendering a shape and another set of 4 messages for moving them. This is the benefit of the composite design pattern. We can represent a hierarchy of objects and treat objects in this hierarchy the same way.